Hi, welcome to the Illuminate podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Monetto. I'm so happy you're here. Today I have a guest on, Jessica, who I'm so excited for. As you know, Illuminate is all about spreading light, the light within and the light that others have. And Jessica is someone that completely embodies that. She is just this like light-filled wisdom woman that drops these like little nuggets all over the place. And I'm like, that is like printable. Like put that in a book, all these different things. So Jessica, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So, first to start out, just tell us a little bit about Jessica. Like, that's like the broadest question we were just talking about. Like, how do you sum up a whole lifetime into like a brief introduction? But just tell us a little about who you are, like what you do, where you live, whatever you feel is pertinent.
Yes, of course. Um, I'm Jessica. I'm 35 years old. I live in Idaho, born and raised Idaho girly. Um, I was raised in the LDS community and then moved away for college. I studied anatomy and physiology. I thought I was going to be pre-med, and then I dropped out of college. I became a
Woohoo.
makeup artist. Yeah. I became a makeup artist. That was like one of my childhood dreams. And then I did that for a couple of years. And then I actually moved to Paris for a year
I didn't know that.
and got to just immerse in that culture. And it's just such a free and liberal culture that taught me a lot about just laissez-faire, just like kind
Mm-hmm.
of like going with the flow and like, c'est la vie. It's just
Yes.
life. And um, so I did that for a year and then I came back home and I decided to get my aesthetics license and then I did medical aesthetics for a long time.
Okay.
And then after being in the beauty industry for a long time, I could just feel that like this wasn't my jam to be doing this all of the time. And then my mom got really sick. She just struggled with her health most of my life. And then it really transformed and it developed into Alzheimer's.
Mm.
And so that really took a turn. And I, with the other siblings of mine, I'm the youngest of five,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of all took turns being caregivers for her.
Back in Idaho.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's part of my story, and just also what led me to Ayurveda and diving into more of holistic health and just seeing how the healthcare system wasn't fulfilling her needs,
Yeah.
and also doing things that had different repercussions for the things that she was struggling with. And then she passed away in 2020.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
obviously, like, COVID was so crazy. I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you. COVID was so crazy. So that was a big thing. And then, yeah, then I just started getting even more into Ayurveda and holistic health and caring for myself, because one of the things with somebody in your direct lineage being so sick is this fear that you also might have these
Yeah.
same genetic codes within you.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what took me to Ayurvedic and holistic health coaching, mentoring. So that's kind
Yes.
of where I've landed now, but
Okay.
it's a huge, broad range of what I do.
Yeah. Well, and I have a family history of dementia as well. And
Mm,
I'm the same way.
yeah,
I'm like, okay, what can I do? All the things in my power to unprogram that. Like I might have a genetic predisposition, but that's my motivation for a lot of things I do is I'm like, I don't want to follow that same path. Like I
exactly.
don't want that because it's hard to see someone you love go through that. And it's like, okay, yeah, our bodies are so intelligent. We have so many beautiful tools. What can I do to change that trajectory? So, did you know anything about Ayurveda, or was it when your mom was diagnosed that you just started like, okay, what can I do to help her?
I knew about Ayurveda just from being somebody that had done yoga, and I had heard about Ayurveda through yoga, and it's like a sister science.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think Ayurveda is above it, and then
Yeah,
yoga is like a practice within it.
I agree.
Yeah, same. Um, so I had like heard about it, and I had done like little dosha quizzes and things like that. But I didn't really feel a desire to investigate it very hard until she was really sick. And then just also the methodology in which I approached her illness and realizing that our issues are in our tissues and that some of this was from her life and her
Mm-hmm.
trauma and her experiences and her emotions and just that she hadn't processed life and that it was stuck within her.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing the difference of how I chose to care for her versus my siblings or
Yeah.
even the doctors and just doing my best.
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
there ever, I mean, you don't have to answer this. You could say pass if you want, but like, was there ever pushback? Like, were there others that were taking care that were like, what are you doing? Or was it like, okay, you know what, we're all doing the best we can to help mom with the tools we have?
Yeah, there was pushback because we grew up in the LDS faith, there were
Yeah.
things that I was willing to try to help her, get this out of her system or at least make her experience pleasant.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
down for her to be utilizing CBD and
Yes.
cannabis or things like that. And my siblings were not into that. Or I
Okay.
would be applying essential oils and like little lotions and potions to her to help her sleep and to calm her and to like regulate her and bring her back into her body.
Yeah.
And they would be like, no, we just got to go to the doctor. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
do
As
we? You
as
sure?"
as like the hippie child, I get that. I'm like, oh, but we could do something else. Like that would be
Yes.
fun.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so before we go into, I'm gonna have you explain Ayurveda because you've mentioned doshas and different things like that. But before we do that, do you have a job title or something you call yourself? Like I said beforehand, I was like, I just refer to you as like in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, Jessica, like the self-love goddess, like this wisdom woman. I feel like that could be a title, wisdom woman, but what do
I'll take
you
it.
what do you call yourself?
I'll take it. I try not to really attach to any identities or labels anymore because at this point, at 35, I have been so many things. And
Mhm.
I've done that thing where you attach to your career or the way that you make money or a perception that's projected on you by other people.
Yeah,
And so I just like to say that I'm a Jess of all trades.
I like
You
that.
never know what you're gonna get.
That's perfect. I did a training, a somatic breathwork training. This was a few years ago, and the trainer there, he always talks about how humans are a verb, and he's like we should all be Jessica Inc, Sydney Inc. Like we are this verb that's changing, and he's like we get so stuck to these identities, and that's something that I also have stuck with. I'm like we are always changing, and so often the people in our circles, they are like, oh, let me change, but I'm like then do the same for me. Like yeah, what I like today and what I'm passionate about and what I may find exciting career wise, I might change like literally tomorrow. Like you said, you dropped out of school. Same. I went to 5 different colleges. I have no degree to show for it, but it's like,
Love it.
I just love learning. Like, I just love so many different things, and I love that it can change. And like, I
Absolutely.
can change it whenever the heck I want to. So,
Yeah.
so you had mentioned everything with your mom. So tell us a little bit about, so for someone that has never heard like the phrase Ayurveda, like I got introduced to it through my sister-in-law, the herbalist, Shersti. She was on, I think it was my second episode actually, second or third. And so she introduced me to it, but I had never heard of it before then. So if someone has never heard of Ayurveda or Ayurvedic medicine, how would you explain it to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically the science of life, the study of life, but it's rooted in India, in Hinduism, in yoga. It has ties to that. So it's just a science of life, very similar to something like Chinese medicine, but it started from the same way that like anything starts is like there's a problem in a community, in a culture, and then they study and trial and error these things and find the commonalities within people to diagnose and to treat. So that's basically what it is, but it's all mostly in holistic health and applying plant medicine, spices,
Mm-hmm.
living closer to our biology of like how humans actually function properly,
Yeah.
and also reading the signs of the body and
Yeah.
realizing that humans and the human experience is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and that you are layers, deep, deep layers. And that's kind of something that is not taught as much in Western
Western
medicine.
medicine. Yeah. Well, and that's when I was introduced to it. That's something that really resonated with me. I love that it was like a whole person approach, not even just a whole physical body, like a whole, the spirit, the mind, the body, like your physical structure. And you can go a little bit more into like the doshas for us, but it's like how, what's your physical build like? And then what does that mean for your mental state? And what are you more prone to? And so for me, I was like, whoa, this is such an amazing tool that looks at all of me, not just here's this one symptom, right? Which we're so used to, especially in Western medicine. And I love that in Ayurveda, you get to match like a whole person to a solution rather than just like, here's this one symptom and let's give you this one pill for it. So
Exactly.
I feel like, so my understanding of Ayurveda is baby level. But so if you want to explain doshas, because that's obviously a huge part of Ayurveda is knowing your dosha and how that ties into what herbs you're using, what foods you're eating, and everything like that. So do you want to explain that for us?
Sure. Yes, I will try. So the
This is like
doshas,
books. Like they're like textbooks on this. And I'm like, just summarize it for us real quick. No problem.
yeah, no problem. Just ancient wisdom, thousands of pages long.
Just give
That's
it to
actually
us
in
in
another language. Just a little Sanskrit for you.
just give it to us in 10 minutes. It's fine.
Yeah. So the doshas are basically um, a constitution type within the body, and the constitutions and doshas are built up of the five elements of fire, air, ether, earth, and water, and then how those are divided up into three. And so that's vata, which is ether and air, and then pitta, and that's fire, and then kapha, which is earth and water. And so everybody, all things, all matter is a combination of all of those five. And you could be a variety or a percentage of all of those in different forms. And then that literally manifests a different physical being,
Yeah.
you know? And so a lot of the teachings talk about your initial dosha, who you came here as, what your original constitution was when you arrived on the planet, and how you were that most of your childhood. And then it's like when things start happening, or your culture, nature versus nurture, all of
Yeah.
these things are implemented that then change your dosha and creates imbalance in the body, which is the root of
Mm-hmm.
disease in the body.
So like vata is air, right? If I remember
Hmm.
correctly. So it was explained to me, and you can correct this if it's wrong, that like a person with a vata constitution is more like airy, like they have lighter movements. Like I have a niece that is this, and she's just like this wispy little thing. Like she just kind of floats through life. And her like physical constitution is that like she's not like a bulky kid. She's not like she's just kind of a wiry girl. But then also her natural tendencies, like she's a daydreamer, like, and she's just kind of like floating through life. She's not like it, so I feel like it ties into all those different things. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. And it can be applied in so many, again, different layers of the body, because it can be something as simple as like coming out in your speech. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
that talks really fast is really rapid. And it can also be something like an imbalance would maybe be more anxiety, or like
Mm-hmm.
monkey mind, so many ideas, and they're just all over the place and just trying to tackle many things in life.
Yeah.
And then some of those positive attributes are being like the dreamers and the creators, and more go with the flow. Um, yeah, and just like lighthearted,
Yes,
if you
yes.
will.
And that's
Yes,
her, but there is more, like you said, more prone to anxiety when, because if you're already an air-like being, right? And you're like up in the clouds, then of course you're going to be more prone to that anxiety unless you have something that grounds and brings you back to balance
exactly.
it. So
Yes.
so what's your dosha? What are you?
Oh man, it's so interesting, because again, like it comes out in different forms, and we
Yeah.
live in a world that's very unbalanced. So I feel like it took me a while to like kind of figure out my true constitution, which I think I'm mostly pitta. So I have
Okay.
a lot of fire in me,
Mm-hmm.
which if you know me is like obvious,
Yeah,
like
I'm like, from what I
very
know of you, I was like, I'm pretty sure.
yes, so like very passionate. And then like it even shows in my face too. Like if I was to sweat or to do sports or eat spicy foods, like I'm getting rosy
Yeah.
cheeks for sure. So I just have a lot of fire in me, and I'm prone to like acid reflux if I'm not careful with what I eat.
Yeah.
So that's
You
definitely a
have more heat.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So do you always like try to eat more cooling things, like as a general rule?
Not necessarily. Sometimes I almost try to eat just like more neutral things, but I'm always watching what I'm consuming and then how I'm releasing, because that's a really important piece is your agni, which is your digestive fire. So you
Okay.
do want fire because that's what transforms anything into something else, and
Yeah.
separating what can be utilized and what just needs to be let go. Um and the thing that Ayurveda has actually taught me a lot about is that when you're rooted in the self, you can process anything.
Yeah.
You can get through anything. You can eat whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with the correct intention and just being mindful of your intention.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a time where I definitely had to, cool it on the red wines and
Yeah.
mixing that with spicy food or something like that.
You felt it. You noticed it. So you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm out of balance. I see it and feel it, and I'm seeing these physical symptoms of that.
Yes, and it's been years since I've had anything like acid reflux,
Yeah.
so it really doesn't even come up anymore now because I live a very balanced lifestyle and I'm very mindful and I drink a lot of water. Like
Yeah.
I'm always doing things that bring it down. And what's also really beautiful about Ayurveda is like beyond just what you're consuming through your mouth, they teach you to watch your holes and your sensory organs, your
Yeah.
eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, these other holes, and to just be mindful of like what's going in and then also what's coming out. And so if I'm aware that I am a more fiery constitution, it is in my best interest to wear blue,
Yeah.
things like that, and to just soften, to have calming spaces. Does that make sense?
Yes. To
So
balance
it's,
out the fire that's naturally within you. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So what you shared a little bit, but like what do you feel like is the biggest impact that Ayurveda has made on you, and like why should women know what Ayurvedic medicine is and how, like, why does it impact them?
Yeah.
Another
I think
loaded question.
no, it's so beautiful. I think the principle of Ayurveda that changed my life the most was Dinacharya. And Dinacharya is your daily rituals, your daily routines. And so in that, they talk a lot about circadian rhythms and doing certain things at Vata times, Kapha times, or Pitta times, and when energy changes just in the rhythms of the day, the natural cycles of nature that are also within you.
Yeah.
And then also how you can be noticing your imbalances by the daily rituals of tongue scraping, utilizing a neti pot, uh, oiling your nose, just checking your eyes, spending time with yourself, oil pulling, full body abhyanga massages,
Yeah.
um, and how you start your day and like when you decide to break your fast, when
Hmm.
you decide to eat your largest meal, when you stop eating, knowing you're going to go to bed, at a
Yeah.
certain time. And that was really what changed the game for me because I had prior to that done more really rigid and like die hard discipline routines.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with 75 hard.
I am. My
So
husband's done it twice and I have
yes.
never. He's like, "Do you
Okay.
want to join me in this?" I'm like, "Hard pass, not my thing."
Yes. So I loved 75 hard and it was like so good for me to do after my mom passed away and caregiving for multiple years.
Yeah.
That had really taken a toll on me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of the things.
Yeah.
And so I went into 75 hard after she died and I did it and I crushed it and it was amazing. And then I went on to complete the Live Hard year, which
Okay.
again,
Yeah.
amazing, life changing. I'm so glad I did it, but it's just a very masculine, rigid
Yes.
structure.
And not
So,
sustainable. I feel like really powerful as a tool, as like a reset, but not necessarily sustainable with the ebbs and flows of life, right?
Yes, and for feminine form and flow, with
Yeah.
the consideration of your monthly cycles and just who you are in a 28-day cycle and then
Yeah.
seasonally and all of that. So coming from something very rigid like that to something that just has more flow,
Yeah.
oh, I really needed that. And it turned from discipline to devotion and just
I love
such
that.
a loving ritual and mindfulness and awareness practice every day.
Yeah. Which is something you do so well. Like, even when I first started following you, so I didn't say this at the beginning, but Jessica and I met in a group that we were in. I always call it a mastermind, but it's like so much more than a mastermind. And I started following her right away, and I was like, okay, she's cool. Like, you are doing, and that devotion piece is totally what I think of, because I saw the way that you treated your rituals. Your, like, even as simple to me, or like to some, as like lotioning or oiling your body. It was
Mhm.
like this beautiful experience that I was like, oh, that devotion piece, which I had never even heard of it phrased like that. Like, to me, I was raised that like devotion was to like a god, right? Devotion was like
Mhm.
to a higher being, but like never to self, right? So tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about that, like your rituals and how that's tied into like you embody so much beautiful self-love, that femininity that you're talking about. So I'd love to hear more about your devotion, your daily devotion.
Yes, yeah. So it definitely ties into that Dinacharya, that daily ritual practice.
Yeah.
Um, and really what happened for me was combining a bunch of different spiritual ideologies and rituals, and then realizing that I wanted to make them my own with my own belief systems. And one of the things that you're taught in many religions is about altar spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had tried many altar spaces and putting on, kind of what you see out there in the world, which is crystals and feathers and oracle cards and all these things, and I love those. But then I decided that I am the altar, me.
Yeah.
Like, this is the altar. And it was important that I arrived at this space every morning in reverence, in devotion, and honor. And then my altar became all of my skincare tools and all of the things that I use to gua sha and dry brush and do that really beautiful full body Abhyanga oil massage
Yeah.
and cuticle care and all of that kind of just fun stuff. And like, that is what my altar is back here.
Yeah.
Just a cake tier of all the things that I could ever need on any given day, any given season,
Yeah.
no matter my imbalance.
Yes. And to show yourself the devotion and the love.
Yes.
That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. So how how do you maintain that on days where you're like, maybe you're just like having a day and you're like, I hate everything. Or maybe it's like a very busy day. Do you still find ways to do that? Or is there like, talking about like the seasons and kind of the femininity of flow of that? Are there days where you're like, you know what? I've got one thing I'm going to do today? Or are there like non negotiables in that?
Yes. That's a fair question. Um, because
Because
also I
I'm like an
think,
all or nothing sometimes. Sorry. Like,
oh,
there are times where
absolutely.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like if I can't do it, I I'll just skip it for today, which it's like silly, but like the devotion piece for me, it just became skincare this last year. And I was motivated from a place where I'm like, okay, I need to show myself some love. Like, I have never really consistently even like washed my face. I shouldn't say that to like an esthetician. Like, don't
We've
fight
all been
me.
there, girl.
But it was a little more than a year ago. I was like, you know what? I'm getting a skincare routine and I'm gonna do it morning and night no matter what. Like, I don't care if I'm
Mm,
tired. I don't care if like I only do 2 steps instead of all 7. Like, I'm always going to do something. And even that like really simple thing for me was a way to show devotion to myself, that like, okay, this is a way to give back to myself. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about how you like balance that as a human in the world like that we live
yeah.
in.
What is actually really wild is that I went from the beauty industry where I feel like I was doing the absolute most all of the time to maintain my beauty and my youth and just working so hard and masking all the time that honestly I didn't even know what was like under here, what was really going on. And Ayurveda actually stepped me out of like a seven step skincare routine into
Yeah.
such simplicity. And it was such an easy transition and it works. Like,
Yeah.
I swear to God, I've never been more beautiful. Like, and
Yeah.
I really think that, and I
And you
really
have
feel
a
that way.
literal glow. Like the first time I saw you in
Thank you.
person, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just as glowy and beautiful as she is online. Like you just have, like it's. I mean, it also comes from within. Like you have this internal
Yeah.
glow too, but you do have this like this this beauty, you know. And so I
Thank
love hearing
you.
that it's
Thank
simple
you.
because there are times I'm like, oh my gosh, should I be doing more, you know? But I think that honoring what you need
Yeah.
it sounds like it's enough. I'm like, I don't have to
Yes.
do 15 steps. Yay.
Yeah. And what it was just, it truly was wild transitioning from all of that to
Yeah.
Ayurveda and really applying Ayurveda's foundational Dinacharya rules and really simplifying with the idea of like, if it's not good enough for me to eat, I probably shouldn't be putting it on my body. And
Mm,
so it really was, I was really able to cut out like all of the AHAs and BHAs and all of these like heavy duty exfoliants and like
yeah.
dermaplaning my skin and like just so much. I literally use like rose water,
Yeah.
oil, and beef tallow.
Yeah.
That's it. And then I have an exfoliant in the shower
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
if it's a shower day, if I'm doing the shower thing.
Yeah.
So it's like my skincare routine has never been more limited in my entire life,
Yeah.
and it's the best one I've ever had.
Yeah. I love that. Well,
Hmm.
and I think you also hit a good point. Like we said, you're also doing the internal work too. You're
Yes.
not just masking it by what you're putting on your face or skin. You're
Hmm.
doing like the internal, the self love. I mean, even the mastermind I mentioned that we were in, like, it was heavy work in terms of like, we're doing shadow work and we're doing, all this other stuff to work on self. So what, I mean, self love is a word that gets tossed around a lot right now. I feel like people are like,
Hmm.
oh, self love. But what does, I didn't text you this before, so I'm just throwing this one at you, just
Oh, I'm excited.
free balling. What does self love mean to you?
Oh, I don't, I guess for me, it's just acknowledging your duality and your range and capacity for life, and that nothing is right or wrong or good or bad, and just accepting and acknowledging all of your parts with just grace and compassion and not judging any of it.
Yeah,
And really, I think this is another piece that Ayurveda brought for me was studying the science behind Ayurveda and like your body and like its form and functionality and having such love for all of it
yeah,
because I could see it. So I stopped looking at my hair and being like, oh, I'm aging, it's graying, and being grateful for my hair or
yeah,
my nails, like not feeling like I need to wear a full set of fake nails anymore and being like, thank goodness I have nails. These are such a good tool. Who thought of that?
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
So I just think it's really acknowledging what a gift this body is, this life is, and I think that's what's helped me find self-love
yeah.
the easiest, just
That's
connecting all of it.
that's beautiful. And it's one of those things, like I said, it gets a lot of like, there's a lot of buzz around it, but at its core, it's simple. It's loving
Yes.
yourself in all your parts. And then it shows up. It shows up in your skin, it shows up in your face, it shows up in who you are. So tell us about your event. You have a love related, a self-love lover event coming up on February 9th. So this will go live. I'm actually going to put this up tomorrow. I release episodes on
Gosh, how
Wednesdays.
exciting.
So tell us a little about your event, because I signed up. The minute you posted it, I was like, that was like a heck yes, full body yes. I
Yes.
need to learn from Jessica. So tell us a little bit about that and what it's about.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women have a very similar upbringing as I did, where learning your own body wasn't taught in the home, and it was kind of given off to like church and school, and then it
Yeah.
was just pretty bland and boring and had nothing to do with the emotional side of it, the mental side of it, the spiritual side of it. It was just like the physical side. Here's
Yeah.
what can happen. Don't have sex.
Yes.
You will
And
get
here's
pregnant.
the
You will get an
menstruation.
STD.
Yes. And here's the menstruation program. Like,
Yeah.
here's a tampon. Good luck with life. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And so through studying Ayurveda, I got to study with some of the smartest women ever and really dive into the feminine cycles and given permission slips to investigate your own body, your own blood, your mucus, your secretions, all of these things.
Yeah.
And again, it taught me the form and function of all of those things and really fall in love with them and see the differences of who a woman is in a month, divided into 4
Yes.
weeks, and just how that goes in a wave and the beauty of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll talk a little bit about that, like moon cycles, the
Yes.
women's cycles, and how to honor each week and what that looks like and what's really happening there that can feel maybe not great.
Yeah.
And and that's also part of it, is that because of our society standards and our culture and the birth control and the tampons and all of these things that are actually harmful to your cycle and to your fertility, a lot of women experience symptoms of PMS. And
Yes.
that's common, it's not normal.
Yes.
That's not,
Amen. Yeah.
yeah, that's not the intention, that's not form, that's not the like flow
Yeah.
that women should be experiencing.
That's not how our bodies were designed. That is, once
Exactly.
again, if we look at the whole body, spirit, mind, emotional, physical, what are those things teaching us? Like,
Yes.
what are they trying to tell us? You know?
Yes. Yes, and there's so much wisdom to be found in your unique cycles.
Yeah.
And that there's a gift for a woman at each week if you know what to look for. The release and the renewal should actually feel good.
Yeah.
And teaching women how to allow that and to feel good and to also honor when you're actually doing the release, to rest
Yeah.
and to block out the world, go inward, take care of yourself, because there's also information there for you too,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So we'll go over that and how to like love your cycle, honor it in reverence. It's such a gift to be a woman, to
Yeah.
hold this radical responsibility and honor of creating life and then being the place where it incubates and
Yeah.
then birthing that into the world.
Yes. And then
And
nourishing it after. I always say, I'm like,
yes.
women are superheroes.
Oh
I
my
think I've probably said it on this podcast alone, like probably 10 times, and I don't even have 10 episodes because men are cool. Yes, whatever. They have a place. They're great, right? But like, women and our bodies and our capabilities are amazing. I will never
Totally.
continue to be amazed by that. Like you said,
Yeah.
even the fact that like, it might be silly, but even the other day, I was bleeding and my 4-year-old came in and she saw and she was like, "Oh my gosh, are you dying?" I was like, "No, I'm not dying." And my 6-year-old, my son, came in. He's like, "Mom, you're bleeding. Are you dying?" And I was like, "No, no, no, no one's dying. This is what mommies do." But even that, it was like a cool, probably TMI, but a cool teaching moment because I was like, "No, women get this. Like, this means that this is how mom was able to have babies, as my body does this, and it means I'm really powerful and strong." And so they're probably like, "Okay, mom, stop talking. Like, we don't care anymore." But I'm like, "No, and we're so cool." And so my 4-year-old, she was like, "So will that happen someday to me?" And I said, "Yeah, when you're a grown up, it is, and it's going to be so cool and so powerful." And so just knowing that and reframing that for not only ourselves but future generations, I think is so cool and so
Mhm.
powerful. Because
Absolutely.
my messaging that I got was like, "Ugh, yucky." Like, "Oh, don't let
Yes.
anyone know
Hide
and
it.
hide your tampons and here's a secret little
Mm-hmm.
pouch to keep them in so that no
Yeah.
one knows." And it's like, yeah, there's a reason we have it. Like, there is a
Yes.
reason that we were designed and that nature and God and whatever you believe in have designed us in a way that we have this. So like, what is it teaching us? So you'll go
Absolutely.
into that on the 9th. You'll go more into
Yeah.
all the cycles. Okay.
Yeah. It actually truly, from like a biological standpoint, it is like the deepest initiation for a woman so that she can honor, if she can honor and take care of herself in all of her seasons and all of the transitions, that is the initiation to be able to do that for a child. So
Oh,
if you're not doing that,
I've
if you
never heard
don't
it
know how to
phrased
do
that
that,
way. Oh,
yes, yeah. I mean, it's a rite of passage,
yeah,
and it's one that we also need to be teaching the next generation by showing them how we do it. So I would
yeah,
definitely encourage you to invite your children in. Um, uh, that's what if I'm ever a mom, that's what I
yeah.
will be doing. We will be
That's
doing
awesome.
my dinacharya with my kiddos
I love
and
that.
not making it weird or taboo. Bodies
Yes.
aren't weird. Sexuality isn't weird.
Yeah.
The hormones, the secretions, none of it's weird. And they'll just know and understand it. And then as they get older, teaching them boundaries and privacy and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But it's normal and it's beautiful and there's no shame about it.
Yeah. I love that. So on the 9th, what's the title of the event?
It's just called be your best and favorite lover.
Be your best. I'm like, I knew it was something lover, but I didn't want to mess it up. So,
Yeah.
be your best and favorite lover too. You're talking about that and loving yourself through all of that. And
Yes.
then, are you? What else? What
Y-
else with
Yeah.
love and self and womanhood?
Yes. So, we're also going to be talking about like tantra and kama, how you build your like pleasure power
Mm-hmm.
and the power of the feminine pleasure and your creation life force energy and how to apply that first and foremost to yourself within
Mm-hmm.
yourself and let that energy build in you so then you can be creative in your own life and
Mm-hmm.
then also share it with somebody else if you choose to and to do it correctly and with deep intention. We're also going to be talking about celibacy even in partnership, if there's
Mm-hmm.
times where you need to take a break and be empowered in that choice,
Yeah.
because sex is a sacred act.
Yeah.
We're also going to be talking about just how you like love yourself, just in
Yeah.
everyday life, how you anoint yourself, how you affirm yourself, how you adorn yourself, what you're wearing, the jewelry that you put on, what you're saying to yourself. If you're choosing to wear makeup, what is the intention behind it? Who is it for? Is it for you? Who are you trying to impress? Is it
Yeah.
actually doing good things to your body or is it actually harming you?
Yeah.
Which then can also lead to dysregulation of your hormones. So just all of these things all trickle into each other
Yeah.
that deplete your pleasure power and your sacred life force energy.
I love that.
Yeah, and then I think, let's see, I did like a fun little challenge for the month of February too, that was just encouraging you to be your best and favorite lover by buying yourself the roses,
Yeah.
taking yourself to dinner, dressing up for you, creating a lover playlist. Let's see what else. I can't even remember. I think there was 14 because it was through the first 14 days of February. And then I
Yeah.
did an extended one that was like a more advanced one that's about like
I saw that.
mirror work and yoni gazing
Yes.
and getting yourself the vibrator, creating time for yourself to experiment with your own pleasure and learning that if you haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Which I feel like as a collective, I'm in like a bunch of moms Facebook groups. Like it just happens. And even I just got added to one that's primarily like Christian women, but they're
Mm,
all talking about these very concepts. And I feel like women
mm,
are kind of waking up being like, "Oh, wait a second. Like this body is for me. And what does that mean? And yeah, physically, what does it even look like?" And I was listening to it's actually my midwife shared a video the other day and it was some popular podcast. I wasn't familiar with it, but I looked it up and it's like one of the top ones. But these two women were talking and they said something about, is there hair on your vagina and should you shave
mm,
it? And I was like, that is wild to me because your vagina is internal and no, there's not hair on it, right? But like they were talking about shaving before childbirth. And I'm like, even people who house these parts and know these parts don't know them. How do we expect our lovers, our partners, the men, whoever, to then know and understand it if we don't know and understand it, you know?
mhm,
And that's where it's beautiful to truly know your body and know,
mhm,
you know, what it is that you need and all of these different things. And that all goes back to everything we've talked about of like, do you know yourself? Like,
Mm.
and that is, do you know your physical body? Do you know your spiritual self? Do you know your mind? So I'm excited. I'm really excited for you, Ben, because I feel like it's needed.
Yes.
And I feel like so many women do need it and to understand. So what, man, I have like, there's like a million questions running through my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should ask her about this and I should ask her about
Go
this.
for it. I'm an open book and I'm here for it.
But what would you say a common thread as I talk to friends about this and something that I've had many conversations with my husband about this too as we've been raising our kids is because we are quite open and we do, they've known the proper anatomical terms for everything from a very young age, and we have always talked about the shame around it, right? Especially in heavily religious communities. Like I live in Utah, you live in Idaho. These are very conservative places.
Cut from the same cloth.
Yes, I'm like they're like just little kindred spirits. So what are you going to be talking about the shame piece at all in yours? Like for women that are like, okay, yeah, I want to step more into like understanding my body and knowing it, either, from Ayurvedic or whole body or like the pleasure piece, or like, how do I do that? Because some women get stuck in that shame cycle where they're like, okay, it's my body, but like, ooh, like I feel nervous about that, or do I need to talk to someone about that, or do I need to check with my husband? So like, what would you say about kind of breaking that shame cycle?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to be talking about rituals and practices that have to be applied in order to break that shame cycle,
Mm,
because the only way it works is if you do your homework. If
yeah,
you make the connection to your body, you bust through those taboos and the shame, or because that's all in your head.
yeah,
That's not actually rooted in reality at all.
yeah.
Because once you bust through them, then you have clarity. You actually know that, no, this isn't gross.
Yeah.
This isn't shameful. There's nothing bad going on here, and investigating that for yourself. So then you create confidence
Mm,
in doing whatever you want with your body, whenever you want, however you want.
yeah.
So it's really important that you do the rituals to connect, clarify, and then have confidence
I love that. So
so
you're
that
gonna
you
you're
can,
gonna give
yeah,
tools. You're gonna be like, here you go, X, Y, and Z to help
yeah.
reframe in your mind and to understand yourself better.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just, it kind of looks like personal care.
Yeah.
How you take care of yourself with deep intention, with admiration, knowing what it is, why you have it, what it does,
Yes.
and that you should have such liberty to explore it for yourself without any question, and you don't have to tell anybody. It's
Yeah.
for you. It's the relationship you have with yourself.
Yes.
And to encourage people to do that, just to
Yeah.
see, just to
Yeah.
see, and that there might be a period where there is still some shame, and that if they keep going and keep practicing, that eventually, I promise you, it will shift to
Yeah.
pleasure and excitement and joy and liberation. And you'll kind of look back and be like, I can't believe that I lived that way for so long, or I ruminated on these ideas and I didn't explore something that I've been living with this whole
Yes.
time, and that I
That's
possibly,
literally mine. It's
yes,
my literal physical body. Like it's
yes,
mine.
and
It's one
that
of very
pass,
few things I own fully in this world.
yes, and that more than likely you handed over the keys to the kingdom to somebody else,
Yeah.
like your partners, and they had no idea either, and you'd let them lead.
Yeah.
And that's really disturbing to me.
Yeah.
And again, something that I think really needs to get handled for yourself first, but then to pass it on to your children of like, no, no, no. You learn, you take
Yeah.
all the time you need. And then when you're confident in being able to communicate properly and give consent, say yes or no the whole time, the whole way through, that's when you decide to share it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting as a birth worker, like in my education and classes that I teach and everything, I talk a lot about informed consent in your medical decisions. The informed piece being the biggest part that goes with consent, right?
Hmm.
Like if
Hmm.
you are like in a childbirth setting, right? You have to know your options. You have to know, okay, if I don't do a C-section when they're saying I have to, what's going to happen? If I do it, what are the outcomes? What are the possible outcomes? and then make your decision. And I feel like that informed consent does get lost sometimes in relationships, right? Because where is the informed piece coming from with love, with intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
with sex?
Mm-hmm.
From
Mm-hmm.
yourself. How can you give informed consent if you don't know, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so often we are women, if we're married young, if we're not talking about this, if we don't know, we can't give true informed consent. We might give consent,
Absolutely.
like, sure, right? But it's like, do we really know? Do we
Yes.
understand? And I think that's huge. So what, I don't know. I had another thought and now I lost. I got real passionate about
Oh,
informed
I
consent. Oh
just want to
no.
I just want to touch on that little
Yeah.
piece though, especially coming from Idaho and Utah. And if you're raised in some of these religious structures,
Mm-hmm.
you are taught that actually you are property of
Yes.
whoever you get into a relationship with. So
Yeah.
the man actually gets to say whatever is
Yes.
going on in your relationship, and that growing up, you're actually not supposed to look. You're actually not supposed to touch. You're not supposed to investigate it, that it's dirty, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
You'll go to hell. Masturbation is unhealthy. It's a sin. And it's not.
Yeah. Once
It's
again,
not.
it's your literal body. I remember for me, it was that piece of information where it was I have to put an explicit on this on this podcast, but it was like that, like the clitoris is literally its sole purpose is pleasure. And I remember I had a really conservative friend, we were talking about intimacy and in her marriage and some different things. And I remember saying that. I was like, well, think about it. Like if we are not designed by God or whoever you believe designed us, right? If we are not designed by God to have pleasure, why would there be a clitoris? There's no part, it is not needed for childbirth. It is not needed for procreation. So it's like
Totally.
there we are designed to have pleasure and to have love for self. And once again, I feel like as cliche as it is, as you love yourself more, then if you choose to, and if you have a partner, it really does increase that love between you. It changes the
Absolutely.
the dynamic, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and energy is real. So then when you come together and both of you love yourselves deeply and you love the other person deeply, when that bond is made and that energy is just flowing, ripping
yeah.
up and down through both of you, that literally can be such a celestial orgasmic experience that
Yes.
connects you to the divine. But
Yeah.
without those two pretty important pieces of self-love and
Yeah.
knowing yourself, and also knowing your intention for why you're even coming together in that way, because
Yes.
there is an intention just for pleasure and
Yeah.
there is an intention for procreating,
Mhm.
or there's a lot of like darker or stickier intentions as well, and
Mhm.
those can be felt, and those produce a completely different experience as well.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Well, and that's something I think too, as you've talked a lot about different pieces of it, intention. Like the intention you put, like if we're talking about self-exploration and self-pleasure, which is, we started in Ayurveda and here we are, but it all ties together that it's
It
like,
does.
but it's like that, your intention, if your intention is pure and good, like if you're going to be okay, right? Your intention and exploring your body and figuring out what your parts are and how they work and where they're at and what feels good and what doesn't, it's not to hurt someone else. It's not to cause
Hmm.
malice. It's not doing any
Hmm.
of that. It's literally the intention behind it is to understand, is to grow, is
Hmm.
to feel more connected to your body, more connected to your spirit. That's beautiful. Like that is a beautiful intention. That intention piece is huge for so much of this. So
Absolutely. And your
what?
intention
Yeah.
changes energy.
Mhm.
If everything
Absolutely.
is energy, your intention, your thought behind it, your motivation, your desire literally can change what manifests afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's why the pleasure aspect is so important, that a lot of women miss, that like that actually should always be present. And for
Yeah.
many women, it's not at all, or
I
they
know.
don't even know the full range and capacity of their pleasure.
Yeah.
Like they
Which
have
to me
no idea what we're talking about.
makes me sad.
Ew,
Like
it's so sad.
I was even talking to a younger relative who was getting married and she was like, "Yeah, I've heard that like it's just more for my husband." And I'm like, how are we still having that narrative? Like, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I'm like, can I be the weird cousin for a second? Because, like,
Please,
absolutely
please.
not. Like, no, that is not what it's about. It is not just for him. Like, it is literally for you. And, like, it can be, yes, it can be together. Absolutely. Like, I love intimacy with my husband, right? But, like, that is not its purpose. Like, the pleasure and the play for you and self is also part of it. Like, that's, once again,
Yes.
that's how we're
Yes.
literally designed. So I got
And
on my
it's,
soapbox for a minute. I'm like,
I'm so glad you
okay,
did.
weird cousin alert. I'm like, also here's a good
Yes.
lube. Also here's this.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. Bless your heart. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. It really makes me so happy to hear that more women are empowered to speak up about this because it can feel a little dicey to put yourself out there as the person that's like, yeah, I really enjoy talking about sex and
Yeah.
pleasure and women's empowerment and sovereignty and radical responsibility and accountability for your experience. And that part of it should always be joy, pleasure, and fun
Yes.
because that's also taboo. That's
Yes.
also people are like, no, you shouldn't be doing these
Yeah.
things. And it comes with a range of judgment and ignorance that
Yes.
I don't really always have time to like deal with all that stuff because I'm like, you either know what I'm talking about or you don't, or you're curious enough to ask the appropriate questions and apply
Yeah.
the rituals that I'm going to teach you about. Because
Yes.
it's for every woman.
Yeah.
Every woman deserves this.
Absolutely. So what are three things that every woman could start doing today? Like, they're listening to this podcast and they're like, yeah, I want more pleasure. Yes, I want to feel more connected to myself. Yes, I want to be more in balance, with my dosha, with my constitution, or just with my body in general,
Yeah.
right? What are three things they could do?
Yes. I think just I think really just looking at your body nude a lot more. I think spending a lot more time naked because I think it's pretty common for us to all get really busy and it's like the only time we get naked is literally like maybe to like hop in the shower or clean our bodies and then we're immediately putting clothes on again.
Yeah.
Like we're not even spending time just in our normal natural form
Yeah.
and just enjoying that freedom. I love being naked all the time and I don't wear like bras and underwear anymore
Yeah.
because I'm like that's so binding and restrictive. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
conscientious of like leggings. I don't even do that really anymore because it's so tight on the womb space and if that's my responsibility to honor
Yeah.
what it is that I am, I'm really mindful of that. So I guess that's two things is
Yeah.
spend more time naked and then be really mindful of what you're putting on your body and how
Yeah.
it feels. And
Mm-hmm.
that's from products to jewelry to clothing to the colors. Like really be mindful of what it is that you're calling in to your energy field
Yeah.
when you do anything. Um, and then I guess the last one would just be watch your holes.
Yeah.
What are you listening to? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you eating? And then what is it producing
Yeah.
on the way out?
Yeah.
That's
It
an easy one.
all ties together. I love that.
It really does.
Okay, so then I ask all my interviewees, I've had like three or four, but it's fine. All of them. What is something that lights you up? Like a non-negotiable, something you do when you are feeling dim to light yourself up. I mean, you obviously have so many beautiful rituals, but if you could pick one, what would that be?
I I just like to play. And I honestly, I really enjoy being alone and playing by myself. So like if I'm having a day where I just like need to recluse a little bit, I might do that, but out in the world where I'm exploring something new, even if
Mm-hmm.
that's just going to a new antique shop that I've never been or going on a new hike that I've never been on and just exploring and diving into my curiosity of wonder and wander and play. I just love that. That's like a non-negotiable for me. Me time playing.
I love that. Well,
Yes.
and that's even that concept that you say like so nonchalantly is foreign to people. Like I remember it
Mm.
wasn't until I was like in my early 20s, I'd gone through a bad breakup, and I remember I was like, I'm gonna go to a movie by myself. And even that I was like, oh, is that allowed? Like, and I was still in a place a lot of like, what are people gonna think if they see me? Or like, what if I run into someone I know? Like, and guess what? I went to the movie, no one cared, no one noticed. I didn't care. And I had the time of my life. And I ended up going to dinner after by myself. And now I love alone time. Like even my husband would be like, why don't you go grab dinner by yourself? And I'm like, okay, bye. Because
God
it's like,
bless him.
he's the best. Like even he came home, it was like last week, and he was like, hey, this seems like you need a minute. And I'm like, I do. And he's like, here's your Kindle, go. So I went and just wandered shops. What'd you call it? Plain? You had a good name for it.
What did I say?
Or wander and something?
Oh, like Wonder and Wander?
Yes, wander and
Yeah.
wander. I've not heard that. I like that. So that's what I did. I literally just went into shops and I wandered and wandered and I got dinner by myself and I read my little smutty fairy book all by myself in a
Love.
restaurant. And I was like, but even that for some people, that feels like an uncomfortable step. So it's like,
Totally.
but that's that piece of that self-love, true self-love and self-care that it's like, if you can't sit with your physical being alone in a restaurant, let's look at why. Like, why does that feel uncomfortable in your body?
Yeah.
And then understanding that more. So
Yeah.
I
And that
love
was a
that.
practice that I really harnessed when I lived abroad. I
Yeah.
didn't know anybody. So like if
Yeah.
I wanted to go to a museum and or go to a really beautiful, like go to the Eiffel Tower or go to the Monet Gardens or something like that, and I didn't know anybody, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm going. And so I got really good at doing things by myself and really enjoying being in my own energy and just exploration and like, wow, this is so cool. And it actually doesn't need anybody else to witness it because
Yeah.
it's my relationship to me
Yeah.
and building that for me and having these experiences again for me. All
Yes.
about pleasure, joy, and play.
I love that. I love that so much. So I feel like your non-negotiable is also like a fourth thing women could do. It's like, oh, there's another one. If you're not sure about the others,
Yes,
just take yourself on a date. There we go.
truly. And yes, like
And then end
I
it by
love
looking
that.
at yourself naked. Boom. You got two.
Absolutely. Literally. Absolutely.
So, okay, the last question. What is one thing you wish all women knew about their own inner light? Like that's the whole point of Illuminate is to like nourish your light. So what's something you wish they knew? I mean, you've given like so like I'm gonna go back and re-listen to this. I don't often re-listen to myself, but I wanna listen again because it's like you've given so many awesome tools.
Yeah, I think for every woman, and it's going to look different because we're all unique and our purpose is unique, you're always right. Choose yourself.
Hmm.
You are always right for your journey, for your path, for wherever your bliss is calling you, and to not let anybody else's judgment or criticism or their path, how their highlight reel of life looks, you're right for you. So if you're called to it, choose yourself and
Mm-hmm.
send postcards and prayers from wherever you end up.
I love that. Snaps. Thank you, Jessica. So where
You're
can
so
people find
welcome.
you for your class? Where do they find you on the gram?
Oh my gosh, we're going viral, aren't we? This is so funny.
Here we go. When we
Um,
talk about pleasure, it's going everywhere.
they're like, I need to see this girl in real time. Who is she? What's she up to? What
I
else
want
does
to
she
know
have
about
for
oiling
me?
her skin.
Yes, yeah. It's all on there. So I am on Instagram. It's underscore Jessica NNE7. And
Okay.
that's actually Jessica and 7, but
Yeah.
there's only one A. I combined it. So
Okay. And I'll
yes.
make sure I'll tag you when I
Perfect.
post this and everything. So thank you,
Perfect.
Jessica, for coming on, for sharing your wisdom. It has been a treat. I have learned so much, and I know the listeners will do the same. So thanks for listening today to the Illuminate podcast. If you get a chance, leave a review, share it with your friends, share it on social media, text it in your group text to all your friends, because I know you have a friend group chat, and be like, hey, we need to all talk about this pleasure piece and what we can do. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day.